Mary?
Polling continues to show this pretty large disconnect between the economic successes that you all are touting and highlighting this week and the way Americans are actually feeling about the economy, the way they're feeling about their own wallets. You know, inflation and recession fears continue to be a pretty big pull on the president's popularity. So why do you think that is, and is this big rebrand going to be enough to bridge that divide and turn things around?
Well, what I would say is that the president's economic policies are incredibly popular. When you ask people what they think about investing in our roads, bridges, and airports, when you ask people what they think about educating and empowering workers, when you ask people about how they feel about reshoring manufacturing jobs and investing in America, those things are incredibly popular. And we find that when we go out and we talk to people about it, they support Bidenomics. And so that's exactly what the president is going to be doing in Chicago tomorrow. And that's exactly why we're talking to Americans about everything that he's doing to make sure that we grow the economy by growing the middle class, give people the support that they need to grow our economy for us.
And yet, despite those numbers that you just cited, I mean, according to our last poll, 54 to 36% say Donald Trump did a better job handling the economy when he was president than Biden has done so far. You aren't announcing anything new necessarily this week. You are just, sort of highlighting and touting what you've done. Is that enough?
Well, what I would say to you is look at where we were when we came into office, when after 4 years of Donald Trump, unemployment was over 6%. And today we are standing here at a time where unemployment is at historic lows. We've seen inflation come down by 50% over the last year. 11 months straight, inflation has come down. Our economy has recovered faster than any major economy in the entire world. And that's happening because of President Biden's leadership, because of the economic agenda that he's put forward. 2.5 years into this administration, we are just seeing the first impacts of all the historic legislation that he was able to achieve in the first couple of years. We're seeing shovels in grounds. We're seeing private investment come back to our country. We're seeing millions of jobs created. And so now is the time where, with all of those accomplishments, the president can take this message to the American people and say, this is what Bidenomics is, and here's what we have to show for it. Let's put our foot on the gas and keep moving forward instead of returning to these failed trickle-down policies that never seem to ever trickle down.
You and this White House continues to point out that on individual issues that have been passed or that are being implemented, they are popular with the American public. Why does the White House think consistently, however, that Americans grade the president so poorly on his handling of the economy?
Well, look, I just said that we're just starting to feel the impact of the president's economic agenda over the last couple of years. I mean, he in the span of 2 years' time, passed bipartisan infrastructure law, the Inflation Reduction Act, CHIPS and Science Act, and now we're starting to see we are reaching the implementation phase where people are seeing 35,000 infrastructure projects and shovels in grounds across the country, where we're seeing $490 billion in private sector investment coming back to the United States and reshoring of hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs in cities that had been hollowed out for generations. So people are just starting to see the impact of all of the successes of the last couple of years under this president's economic agenda. And now is when we're able to not only talk about what the president's agenda is, but point to the results and the fact that we have to keep our foot on the gas, as I said, to keep ourselves moving forward here.
Some version of what you just said has been said by this White House, though, most of the year. So at what point are the American people going to see this, or are they just not paying attention to what's being done? Are they not being patient enough?
Look, I think the people all across the United States of America are starting to see shovels in grounds in their communities. They're seeing the president announce, as he did on Monday, a commitment to connecting the entire country through high-quality, affordable broadband access, which is going to make a difference in the lives of millions of people. And so, as we get farther into implementation, people are going to continue to feel that. They're going to continue to see that, and they're going to continue to hear from this president about how we're going to continue to make progress for them. Ed, go ahead.
Thanks, Olivia. So the Federal Reserve says inflation's double what the Federal Reserve would like to see, and they believe the unemployment rate will go to 4.1%. So how is Bidenomics not an era of high inflation and rising unemployment rate?
Well, take a look at where we started and where we are now. That's the easiest answer to your question. When we came into office with the global economic headwinds of COVID that were then compounded by the disruptions we faced when Russia invaded Ukraine, and disrupted global food supply chains, global fuel supply chains, sent inflation soaring around the world. Right now, the United States is in a better position on inflation than any other major economy. And why is that? It's because the president took a number of swift and decisive actions to make sure that we got our economy on track, that we got ourselves open and chugging along again. And today, as a consequence of that, we see record low unemployment, record new small business starts, inflation that, again, is lower than any other major economy in the world. And we're making progress.
But we're seeing layoffs, specifically talking about the auto industry. For example, Ford is saying they're laying off workers to afford the cost of the transition to EV. The first quarter of this year, Ford lost $700 million on their EV program, lost $600 million last year. So is that what we can expect with Bidenomics?
Well, I would just say, looking across the economy broadly, we're seeing signs of progress. We're seeing, as I said just a moment ago, record low unemployment, record small business starts, jobs that are coming back by the hundreds of thousands overseas as a result of private investment in clean energy manufacturing in our country. And so certainly we believe that broadly we are on the right track here, that Bidenomics is having a tremendous impact, and we want to continue to see that progress move forward. Go ahead, Catherine.
Thanks. You've mentioned a couple times the idea that people are just starting to feel the impact of the president's economic policies. Does the administration have an assessment of how long it will take for these policies to sink in, and will it be before the next election?
Look, I'm not going to speak to future elections from here, but this president is, as I said, we have already seen the strongest and fastest economic recovery of any major economy in the world. So we've already seen, I just talked about the millions of jobs that have been created, the millions of new small business starts. So we are on track. We are making progress. All I'm saying is that the president is really laser focused on making sure that we implement his Best in America agenda and continue to, as I said, make sure that we keep accelerating forward.
I just want to try once more on the layoffs at Ford. I don't know if you have any comment on the layoffs themselves, and is the administration comfortable with the idea that jobs could be lost in this process of transitioning to electric vehicles?
Well, look, certainly anytime somebody loses a job, loses a paycheck, that's something we're concerned about. The president knows that deeply and personally, what that is like for a family. And so certainly anytime we're hearing about layoffs in the economy, we're concerned about that and monitoring that and looking at that. But what I will say more broadly is part of the reason why the clean energy investments that the president has made in our economy are so important is because we are simultaneously moving his ambitious climate agenda forward, but also bringing clean energy jobs and manufacturing jobs and supply chains back to the United States by the hundreds of thousands. Again, anytime we hear that somebody's lost a job and a paycheck, that is something we take very seriously and don't want to diminish. But we're making progress here, and we think that's important to lift up too.